Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, joined by Justin Wells. We've got another great edition of Recruiting Intel today. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2025 class. Now that the 2024 class is basically all wrapped up, this is the time where the attention turns to juniors. After just hosting a junior day, Texas already has 5 commitments in the boat in the 2025 class. They've been building that class since I think about June of last year. And Justin, you and I are going to talk a little bit about what each guy committed brings over the course of the next couple of weeks. We'll kind of go position by position on offense and defense to see who some of the top targets are, where the Longhorns stand with them. But we got to start with the guys already in the boat. Justin, right now you look at the class, it is currently ranked number 9 in the On3 industry ranking. 4th in the SEC, which says a little bit about what recruiting is going to be. But you remember last year, Texas, I didn't think entered the top 10 until way late in the summer. They're already in the top 10 now, and maybe they'll fluctuate a little bit, but they're already in a great standing especially with 5 guys in the class already.
Yeah, I was trying to remember I think there were 2 guys in the 24 cycle at this time last year. And it was Hunter Modden, and I can't remember
Trey
the other
Owens.
One. I thought Trey was in March, or February or March. Was it late January? Okay. But the point is, it didn't look as good as it did now for 2025. And they finished with the top 5 recruiting class. It would have been top 3 if the services would quit ranking kids every 3 weeks. It was a great class. And so this is something to build on, but we know how Sark rolls. He's not going to push. He plays the long game in these recruitments. And I think it benefits the staff and the class more in the long run. And so they're off to a solid start. When you've got your quarterback, you're in a good position. When you've already got a big time D lineman, you're in a great position. And so I think, and you got a great out-of-state tight end as well. And so I want to go over some of these guys just so the fans know where the foundation of this 2025 cycle is right now.
We got to start at the top with the highest ranked player in this class. As it currently stands, it's quarterback KJ Lacey from Saraland, Alabama. Steve Sarkisian actually plans to see him on Tuesday, January 30th. He's been, he was slated to come to Texas this past weekend and take a visit with his teammate Ryan Williams, but Kalen DeBoer shut that down and earned the commitment from his teammate. That's kind of neither here nor there. KJ Lacey committed last summer, a little bit out of the blue. Texas, is very judicious with its quarterback offers and quarterback takes, and Steve Sarkisian made the call, I think, last June around a camp or a junior day. And if you watch KJ Lacey's tape, at least one thing I noticed is that for a lot of quarterbacks at this level, they're either really athletic or they have really big arms, but it may not be all going on up here. And some quarterback coaches, they want to get the really athletic guy and maybe teach how to pass, or they want to get the really big arm guy. The thing with KJ Lacey, he doesn't have like the typical physical specs you would think of for Sarkisian quarterback. He's probably right around 5'11". He's probably under 190 pounds. I may be being generous in that. And of course, he had a great wide receiver on his Saraland team. But what you see, or at least what I feel like I see in his film, is an ability to process that you don't typically see from a lot of quarterbacks his age. You see him going from read 1 to read 2 to read 3. I mean, his mechanics aren't perfect, and that's a little bit of something to clean up for someone who is, 5'10", 180 pounds, something like that. But at the same time, like, you don't find that processing ability very often this early. And plus, even with those mechanics, not issues, but things that need to be fixed, he makes some great throws. And again, he's got Ryan Williams to throw it up to, one of the top receivers in the 2024 class. But he makes great throws, and you can see a lot of the reasons why Steve Sarkisian and A.J. Millie went to Alabama for their quarterback in this 2025 class.
Yes, and there should always be a disclaimer when we're talking about recruiting and quarterback position. and it should say, in Sark we trust. Because when it comes to this position, Sarkisian is as thorough as it gets when selecting his quarterback for each cycle. We've seen it with the rare number of offers. We've seen it with the few takes that they've already brought in on campus, obviously with Quinn Ewers, with Arch Manning, with Trey Owens, with Malik Murphy. He's got it, he's very, very cautious with who he takes. And so no matter what we see, we have to trust in Sark because he sees something that maybe some of the other ones don't. Now, what we do see is a great kid with he's not your stereotypical big arm guy. He's just not. But the ball comes out about as smooth as any quarterback in the country, and it's light. He has incredible touch, accuracy. He can throw from different angles. The off-platform stuff, I think, is pretty good as well. The thing with Lacey is he is, to me, the doppelganger of Bryce Young, essentially. Like he is, if you say he's 5'11", I'm saying 5'10". If you think he's, close to 180, 190, I'm closer to 160, 170. Like he's light in the britches. Let's just get it straight. But that does not deter him. He's not just good at, accuracy, and he has good mechanics. It's his pocket presence. It's his ability to shift and move and change his direction of where he's looking and keeping his eyes down the field. Throwing to a guy like Ryan Williams is tremendous. You still have to get that guy the ball. And I think Lacey does a tremendous job. Like you said, Sark is going by there today to check in on him. He committed on June 3rd. Of last summer. And the only reason I have that fresh on my memory is because I posted an Intel story this morning at InsideTexas.com. Please come check it out. Try it out. We got a special right now, $1 for a month. And there really isn't a better time to get on board and join the community. We're having a great time over there. Recruiting is fun. Texas has their quarterback for 2025, KJ Lacey. That's not stopping Alabama. That's not stopping Auburn. That's not stopping a number of other schools. But right now, they've got their guy in Sark. We just have to trust.
I'm always a little bit hesitant to compare guys to Heisman Trophy winners and first overall picks in the draft.
I know.
But there is one thing to take from the Bryce Young comparison. You know who recruited Bryce Young to Alabama? Steve Sarkisian. Bill O'Brien got to use him. But Steve Sarkisian, in an offense where he liked the Tuas, the Mac Joneses, he still recruited Bryce Young to Alabama and saw him as a fit. So if you have the throwing ability and the processing ability and the athletic ability, Steve Sarkisian can overlook some size, maybe shortcomings, and that's bad play on words, if you can do some of the things that he believes is necessary in his offense. We got to move on to someone a little bit closer to your neck of the woods. That is Lance Jackson, Texarkana Pleasant Grove. We kind of went through him not too long ago after his commitment following the Texas Junior Day. Justin, this is someone who kind of had the ability to play a little bit of tight end, could have played a little bit of defensive end, but he wants to play on the edge. He wants to play defense, and he gives Texas not only a little bit of a foothold in deep Northeast Texas, but also just, a great player and builds on a very strong edge class in 2024 that Texas hopes they back it up with another one in 2025. And Jackson's a key piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. It's almost like Sark is building a house every cycle. He's building a new house. And if your foundation is a 4-star quarterback with great tools and a 4-star edge who can get to the quarterback religiously, that's a good foundation. That's a good floor for your home. And I think that's what Sark's doing, going for the priority guys. And we'll talk about a few others also, but getting like a big D lineman, getting that quarterback and getting that edge guy that can get to the quarterback. I'm telling you, off the field, Lance Jackson is a incredibly nice, generous, sweet kid. On the field, he's diabolical. It just changes. It's like a shark when the eyes go back in and they change colors. He always moves in one direction. That's what he's going to bring. 6'5", about 245. Very, very good athlete. PK convinced him, look, your future is bending the edge and getting to the quarterback, just like your older brother, who is starring at the University of Arkansas right now in Landon Jackson. Lance it's a great take. It's a good take early, I think, in this cycle, because Lance isn't into the recruiting stuff. He was ready to shut it down, and now you've got your floor for your edge in this class. And Texas is obviously going to add a couple more. But with Jackson, the thing that you got to remember is he's not as strong as his older brother Landon was. Landon had some of this country old man strength to him, but he's more athletic and can do more things. It's not just a barrel you over kind of guy. He has moves, he has technique, and he has really good feet. And at that position, I mean, feet are everything in sports, but especially in football and at defensive end, and his ability to use his hands and get past offensive linemen pretty easily and deflecting. That's the thing I noticed about him when I went and saw him last year a few times, was how he was getting in passing lanes. I mean, he batted Gilmer's passes down 4 or 5 times. And to me, we've seen that's a big thing. That's valuable for a defense when you're trying to get that offense off the field on a 3rd down. It's not just getting to the quarterback, it's disrupting the offense. That's what Lance Jackson does. He's a disruptor in a very diabolical way on the field, off the field. Just a tremendous kid, locker room guy. Glad he jumped in the boat early.
Yeah, one thing about Lance is you think about the way that Pete Kwiatkowski plays those edge positions. When they're in that base nickel, they like guys who, yes, can go forward, but every now and then, especially if he ends up at Jack, Buck has to drop a little bit on that weak side, but Jack does too. Not as often, but still a thing. Think about a guy who also moonlights as a tight end, albeit in a very run-oriented offense. Someone who still is able to play on offense, was getting looks on offense from schools around the country. That's a guy you have playing a position, because if he's at 245 and he puts on 20 more pounds, something like that, he's going to be playing on that strong side. So he not only has that strength, that rushing ability, but he also, you just see from the fact that he is playing offense at a 4A level.
Big 4A level. And he's big good tight end.
Yeah.
He had tight end offers, Joe.
Right. Like he's someone who can definitely has the movement skills needed to play very well at that position. So, and hey, like you said, it's another addition from East Texas. That's something I know that always makes you pretty darn happy. And
when they're good enough.
Yeah. And it helps with Texas as well. We'll keep it moving along to Emaree Winston. He's a tight end, the number 227 overall prospect in the On3 industry ranking. He's from Calhoun, Georgia, so a little bit into Tashard Choice's recruiting area. Of course, Jeff Banks, Steve Sarkisian were on this one. And as far as tight ends go, kind of unique compared to some of the other guys that Steve Sarkisian and Jeff Banks have added in recent years. Has, maybe not the height, but he's got some of the movement ability to where if this is a 2 tight end class where it looks like that's where it's heading, he gives you some traits in a frame that fit into one of the molds of the tight ends that Texas likes to use on the field.
Yeah, Winston's he's an interesting guy. I think you really described it well. He chose Texas over Ohio State and Central Florida, out of Calhoun, Georgia. Anytime you can get a kid down there, you do. The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure that's Emaree is how you're supposed to say his name. Even though I've probably messed it up a few times. He jumped in the boat early, and he's a guy that, I think you can envision him playing in line and flexed out. I think if he puts on more size, and he's already a big kid, don't get it twisted. You want to see a little bit more physicality from a blocking guy. I think he's more of a pass catching tight end, but a lot of them are. That's the nature of the position in the spread era. They want that extra guy that can be a weapon that the defense has to pay attention to. That's Winston. Even if he does line up in line, you have to have him occupied. Otherwise, he's going to burn you behind a linebacker, potentially with a safety one-on-one. Texas only took one last year in Jordan Washington, so I think they're going big in this cycle. I could see 2, maybe 3 tight ends, because there's some really good ones in state. I almost feel like they went a little early with Winston on this one, but you got to trust Jeff Banks. He really does just go big game hunting when it comes to tight ends. And Winston's a guy I think can do both. He'll do some of that inline. He'll do some of that flex. He's got some of that. He's got some of that athleticism to him. He's a basketball player, and you know how I feel about that. Those traits often translate, especially at the tight end, since Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez eras. And so Emaree, hey, this is a guy that I think can get on campus. You're not going to need him to play immediately. You can give him a couple years in the strength and conditioning program, get a little bit of that baby fat off and get him kind of slimmed down and trimmed up and get him ready because I think Winston's actually going to rise in recruiting rankings. I think you're going to see this guy have a really, really good senior season, good off season, because he's locked into Texas now and he's happy. Him and Jatavian Sanders have a really good relationship, and you got to give Sanders some credit in this recruitment because I think he was vital in it. But at the end of the day, Texas is going to have to go 2, maybe even 3 at the tight end position. And if your floor is Emaree Winston, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, just thinking out loud about just eligibility and things like that, I think Gunnar Helm is about to be a senior. I bet if Emaree Black had it his way, he'd be one and done at Texas, but who knows? Yeah. Juan Davis, he entered and then exited the portal, but he stayed at Texas. I think he has, I don't know, I can't remember his eligibility off the top of my head, but
it can't be more than a year.
Can't be more than a year, and definitely not more than 2. So the Longhorns, even with adding Jordan Washington, Spencer Shannon, and Will Randall over the last 2 cycles, they're going to need some numbers because they could see 3 depart after this upcoming season. So Winston kind of gives you a little bit of, like you said, it fits a certain skill set. A little with tight end, a lot of these guys aren't blocking in high school. They're right. A great athlete. The coaches are putting them in space. They're not doing tight end things because that's not what's most important to their high school. But it's going to be what's most important in Texas. And there's development there, but you still see some pass catching and movement ability that makes Winston someone in this class that makes a lot of sense, and it's a good early ad, I believe. Yeah. Before we get going, there are 2 more to talk about. We got to talk about Andre the Lawyer. Andre the Lawyer is a longtime Inside Texas user and never take more than their clients. No win, no pay, and no upfront costs. The principal office is in Dallas, Texas. And Andre the Lawyer has been representing injured Longhorns throughout the state of Texas. Every client gets a personalized text message number so they can contact the team, get direct access to the lawyer all day and all night. Call Andre the Lawyer at 214-444-8808, whether you're in a car wreck, an 18-wheeler accident, slip and fall, an on-the-job injury, or wrongful death. 214-444-8808, 214-444-8808. Justin, now we get to talk about a really fun prospect, and you see Brandon Brown from O'Galley High School, I think Melbourne, Florida, 288 overall. And if you watch that film and you look and see how he looks in person, that may be a little bit too low, even at this early juncture. And Texas does have Bo Davis to thank for getting that early commitment. Bo Davis obviously now at LSU, but now it's on to Kenny Baker, who's announced as defensive line coach, to keep Brandon Brown in the fold. And you even talked with Brandon Brown, I think, on Monday night to hear, he wasn't able to meet with Coach Baker, but he was able to see Steve Sarkisian, see Tashard Choice and Jeff Banks, and help, solidify that relationship that led the Florida defensive lineman to commit a little out of the blue.
Yeah, our first worry, or ours, fans' first worry was, what happens with the D-line guys now since Bo Davis moved on. And in Brandon Brown, contacting him, I think, was a must for us. We needed to get some clarity. And, it's funny because he was the same when he committed as he was last night when I got to catch up with him. And we have a story up at InsideTexas.com. You really do need to read it. Brandon committed to Texas. And I kept thinking, well, Bo Davis was influencing it. Brandon committed to Texas. Like, he was pretty adamant about that. He said, look, Texas is where I can grow. They're going to get me where I need to be. They're going to put 2 guys in the first couple rounds, defensive linemen in the next draft. Like, that's where I want to be, Texas as a whole. And I think Sark and Banks and Choice coming in was big for Brandon because they wanted to ensure to him how important he is. How important is he? Man, he is a mud dog in the interior D-line. He is scrappy. He's one of those Florida cats that just gets after it. Great, violent hands, constant motor. Got a pretty good frame that's definitely with the ability to add mass because he's going to get bigger. I mean, I think he'll probably turn into a 3-tech before too long. He's got that sort of frame and sort of clay that you can mold. He's just active. He kind of reminds me of maybe a junior version of Malcolm Brown, the old defensive lineman out of Brenham, in the instance that he's just always, if you turn on the film, he's just always in the play. And a lot of times with defensive linemen, especially in high school, and when it's in August, September, October, they're not as active as they are in November and December. When it gets colder is when those guys actually play more. But Brown I think he's so important to this class, Joe, because they are jumping into the SEC. And I continue to tell you, they have got to stock that defensive line. You're going to get bullied if you can't stop the run. Brandon Brown is the antithesis of stopping the run. He knows exactly what his role is. He's incredible with the 2-gap. He's really, really active. And now that Sark and those guys went to see him to reaffirm that commitment, to let him know you're going to have that new coach. He's talking to Kenny Baker within the next 24 to 48 hours. Texas announced that earlier today. You made a post about it at InsideTexas.com. Come check it out. He's going to talk to Kenny Baker. But the biggest thing I got from him last night was I committed to Texas, not one coach. And, he loves Coach Bo. Don't get it twisted. But he's like, I want the school. It was a bigger decision than just one position coach. And if you're a Texas fan, that's exactly what you want to hear. And if you're Kenny Baker, that has to make you giggle when you started your new job today.
The thing that impressed me most about Brandon Brown is you watch his film and you just see him bullying people. Like I always kind of have that my standard when I'm looking at offensive linemen and defensive linemen is would all 48 minutes against this guy suck? And Brandon Brown would make all 48 minutes suck. Like he's able to just bully not only with his arms but with his drive too, and just throw people around. Like you want to see stuff like that, and the moves will come, but the strength is there. 6'2", I think 275 listed by On3. Definitely has the ability to get up to 300 pounds. And this is one of those recruitments where you thank Tavondre Sweat, you thank Byron Murphy for some of the things they did this past season, putting Texas defensive tackles on the map, winning the Outland, earning All-American honors, likely going on top 75 picks. But both those guys, you can credit the Texas defensive tackle play in 2023 for the assist in this 2025 cycle. And it's going to be a class where they go big on D-line. Like after taking one and, they had some portal stop gaps with T.S. Savea. But after, losing DeAndre Robinson, he only got Melvin Hills and Alex January now on campus. He only had Sadir Mitchell last class. They're going to go big at the big boys. And this is the first and I think a great addition. We got one more to talk about. Linebacker Anthony Williams. He's number 423 overall prospect from Pearland Shadow Creek, an extremely talented program with a lot of extremely talented prospects. Williams is one of them. Gives not only does it give new linebackers coach Johnny Nansen someone to work with in this 2025 class, but it brings probably a level of athleticism that Texas likes to mold at linebacker into the class. And again, maybe you could think of this as another guy who sets the floor for the position, but he does obviously still have upside because he's athletic to probably play multiple positions in this Texas defense.
See, I'm with you. I think he could play multiple spots. I think Texas envisions him at will backer right now, but, don't call him an edge. We learned that. But turn on his tape and you see some outside linebacker traits. You see some ability to get to the quarterback and be disruptive. Anthony is number one, he's a program guy. Every locker room needs an Anthony Williams. That's how he is. Number two is, like you said, he's got athleticism. Like his tape shows he's got some twitch. And number three, he has a great frame. He is only going to get bigger. He is only going to get stronger. And so I think it's that versatility that programs really look for, because we're seeing that in the NFL now. They don't want your traditional defensive end anymore. They want a guy that they can line up at 2 or 3 different spots, maybe get some pressure on a third down. And so with Anthony Williams, I think that's the best part about him, is we don't know exactly how he's going to fit. But with Johnny Nansen jumping in, I love that. Williams was already in the boat. PK had already signed off. PK's a big fan. And I'm kind of at the stage now where I think PK and picks those guys well. I think he knows guys that can smell the football and that can get to the quarterback. And that's what Williams can do. Not to mention, he's pretty good in coverage. He's like decent in space. He's not a guy that you see over pursuing or getting stuck on a running back and not being able to carry him out into the flat. Anthony can do that. And again, every program needs an Anthony Williams. And so I think this was a good take, especially setting the floor for linebacker.
One thing that stands out, he committed on New Year's day of the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Jeff Choate was going to Nevada at that point. Johnny Nansen had been rumored, even on Inside Texas, but not yet announced.
Right.
Anthony Williams still committed. And I think that speaks not only to his faith in Pete Kwiatkowski, but also to his faith in Steve Sarkisian. He was just at junior day. He's starting to be there's a process after you commit where you commit, you kind of come off of that, you're feeling really good, and then you get to go back as a commit. And he's going through that. It's one of the probably the more fun experiences that prospects can have, making their first trip back to their campus. And Williams got that experience the other day. And hey, we're talking about 5 guys. These are all top 450. Like Anthony Williams could move up. Like we're only probably going to be talking for the majority of this cycle about top 350, top 400 guys. Anthony Williams is on the outside of that. He's someone who has a good chance of moving up, playing on a very talented Shadow Creek defense against a good schedule in that part of Houston. Like this is a player who shows off the athletic ability you want at linebacker, and he can, like you said, drop in coverage and do that pretty darn well too. So good linebacker take. Let's see, just in the 2024 class, they only really added Ty Anthony Smith. Of course, that was after a massive 2023 class where they had, depending on what you ask, 3 to 5 linebackers join that fold. So Anthony Williams is someone who is going to be part of probably a good size linebacker class and is going to be a great addition at that position and great on the recruiting trail for Texas. So Justin, anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I'm just glad that we covered some of the guys in this 2025 cycle, because these are the guys Texas fans need to understand. They jumped in the boat early. These guys are in it to win it. There's some good momentum coming off of that 2023 season, that college football playoff, the Big 12 championship, heading into the SEC. They're capitalizing on that. If you don't see Sark adding a ton, it's because he takes his time. He plays the long game. And at the end of the day, we have to trust him in that. The fact that he's had top 5 classes the last 3 cycles. And so I think it was a great explainer of where Texas recruiting is at right now. And I can't wait for our next segment when we talk about who's going to be potentially next in the boat when we go position by position.
It's going to be fun. We're talking about a lot of 5 stars. That's pretty fun. And 5 stars we're going to have to be tracking for a long time. But Justin, thank you so much. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. Head to InsideTexas.com. Again, 1 month of access for $1. I think there's another deal. If you want to go the annual route, you can get 50% off too. That's always available as well. So come on and check us out. You want to go that route? You'll be here all the way through when they make it that far, the next college football playoff national championship game. So great time to grab an annual subscription, get all the summer recruiting, spring football, basketball, baseball, everything you could want on Inside Texas. Justin, thank you so much. We will see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.